Alyssa's pumped up. Many of you have seen me or heard me, I'm sure heard me, more often than not, but we're here today to talk about something that I haven't actually explored before, which is big data and business intelligence and its role with research. I brought along with me Vitaly Sivin, who has been with AMC Networks for about 2 years. Vitaly, you want to say a couple words before we get started?
Well, I'd like to say that there's a reason why I wear a white suit today, because it's not because of Miami Mafia or even Russian Mafia. So it's all about the fact that I represent that other world that have become your world not so long ago, which is big data, and I'm glad to be here.
Great. So let's get started. We're in the 21st century, and the biggest businesses in the world are being driven by data. Thankfully, AMC Networks decided to join that world 2 years ago when we brought in the best and the brightest in the business. Vitaly comes from I would say competitor. Would you say competitor?
Would you say competitor?
I would say competitor. But what he's done here is much different. And actually, Vitaly and I went back and forth on, should we share this? And I'll get into this in a little bit. But what I really enjoy about these conferences is coming and learning about the ways that many of you in the room are using research and insights. And I thought that we would come and do the same for you, which is why we decided to go this route. We're actually going to share a case study with you in a little bit. But before we get to that, this is how research and business intelligence is working within our company, AMCN. And how that works is research and BI actually feed each other. Research uses BI and the data scientists there to make sure that the data we're looking at and that the statistics that we're using make sense. And the other way, when BI is building reports for us and the incredible tool that we've built, the proprietary research tool that we built, BART, making sure that it makes media sense, the way that you're pulling numbers. And with that information that we collaborate, or I like to use the term create together, we feed all of these departments within the company. And by feeding these departments with better insights, we're actually enabling them to make better business decisions with actionable results that feed each of the departments and ultimately the company overall.
What I want to add to it is that if I were to pose a question as to whether you collaborate with your data scientist teams in your environments, I'm sure the answer would be yes from every one of you. But ask yourself a different question. So yes, I represent this other side, and that's why I'm wearing a white suit. But how many of you have thought of inviting that other part with you to a research conference? And the answer is almost none. And so that is, in my mind, is the most telling fact about the collaboration, true collaboration that Melody and I have on our hands for the last 2 years. In fact, so Tom Diangis, who's the head of research for AMC, and I have a running joke between us. So we go to so many meetings together that one of us who arrives first greets the other with words, are you in this meeting too? So it's all about real collaboration, not just collaboration.
Right, and continuing the open and transparent relationship between the two. Really, we realized that we'd be holding each other back and the company overall if we didn't continue that collaboration within each other. So let's talk about then versus now. So then I also like to refer to BV, before Vitaly. Basically, if it was BV, we'd be doing everything the same. The tools that we used 2+ years ago really are the same today. We know what the limitations are in NPower, and really doing elaborate analyses take a lot of time and it's also limited scope. There's not a lot of opportunity, and I know we're working towards those for total TV measurement, but there's major holes in the system. And as a content creator in a studio, we want to be able to track viewers where they're viewing, when they're viewing, and today's capabilities, which were then, just basically impede that ability. The other thing is it's very siloed, right? So you have linear research and you have digital research, and basically they don't talk to each other, and it creates the inability for us to get full-scale macro views for our key stakeholders. And the day-to-day reporting, that's basically what we were. As researchers, even as a VP, I was doing, most of my days were spent running reports. Everyone in this room that's used NPower knows that to create something really meaningful, the amount of time it takes to create the report, run the report, let it process, pull it down, reformat it, and then spend days sifting through the data to try your best to find an insight. So that's where we would be without Vitaly and his team. Now it's changed, and now it's getting really exciting for us in the research department. We've built our own DMP, and that DMP is ingesting many different sources from linear and processed to the point that enables us to see the audience linearly that we've never been able to see before. Over the top, EST, SVOD, social. I mean, Vitaly could go on and on probably.
What I want to add to it is that after 2 years collaborating with Melanie and researchers at AMCN, how nice it is to be able to say today that Melanie can speak as comfortable about DMP as I can speak about research.
So, you know, the sky's the limit here, really, seriously, and I mean this seriously. The analyses that we used to be pulling in NPower, and we're talking about intricate analyses, that's just the baseline of where we are now. We're pulling reports now that would take days in NPower at the click of a button. And the insights are so far above and beyond where we were that it literally jazzes me up to get to work and see what the next thing is. And we've changed from being, you know, a report creator to true conduits to business decisions and business strategies across the company. And we're actually providing actionable insights. And everyone here knows you're asked a question, you're like, oh God, how am I gonna figure that out? And then any good question in research only is followed up with many more questions. And at this point, we're answering the first question, and then we're still able to answer all those follow-up questions. It really has changed the shift in what we're doing today in research. And then it brings me to the last thing today. Why are we here? You know, we had a hard time coming here to show you guys in detail how far along we are in this process. But when it comes down to it, in the incredible spirit of collaboration as industry goes, we wanted to come and share with you one very, you know, small case study so that maybe it can push you to think, what can you do? And how does that work in your business or your area? So that's why we're here, and we'll get to the next slide, which brings you over to Vitaly.
Before I go to the slide, just to add another point to what Melanie just said, I'm sure IP lawyers have their view as to what IP is. But working with research for years, and specifically the last 2 years at AMCN, we came to a realization what IP really is in TV media world and research. It's not necessarily just the code behind of our queries. It's not our statistical models. It's actually the questions that are being asked, not only the questions being answered. All that together is IP, and that's why we have a number of conversations before we made this presentation as to what part of the IP we would like to share with you. And we believe, a very interesting example, which Melanie will speak to later today. So, business intelligence, big data, data analytics. So I've done that first when I was at ABC and ESPN and Disney channels, and then continue on and have done that for AMCN. I I look at it as an iceberg, and that's why is it an iceberg? Because you can only see the tip of it. So everything else is sort of under the water. But I don't want to say that that big part of it is under the water is the most important. Still, that tip of the iceberg is the most important, because in the big data world, it's the most important ingredient is to be able to ask questions. So then creative engineers, creative data scientists will figure out a way, even if it's complex, even if days and nights have to go into it, but the most important thing is to be able to ask the question. So in the spirit of that, I'll take you back to 1982. This is when Bloomberg Terminal was innovatively created. And it changed financial industry, meaning that that was a device that was built on enormous amount of data behind and built on the experiences of the researchers in financial world so that they'd be able to rightfully so bring this data to help them to answer their questions. So I'm not old enough to remember how in '82 that terminal how widely it was distributed, but since '82 it was the most important thing in financial industry, and so just a few years ago that same transformation started happening in TV media, and it's kind of in my mind it's almost I would like to say it's a fault of Nielsen, because look at NPower. Nielsen years ago had capabilities of creating something similar to that Bloomberg Terminal that will help researchers become researchers, and instead it's kind of the best they could do is NPower, which is nowhere near to what Bloomberg Terminal is. It's just data dumping tool that you will have to use to get to your insights. So that's pretty much what this slide was for. So just to tell you that it's all about the platform, which is somewhere under the water for that iceberg, and all of that is driven to get insights out of it. So we are data scientists, so we are obviously hungry for data. We're dealing with hundreds of billions of rows of data. We can process them in seconds. We can do a lot of great things with it. And thanks to Nielsen, somewhere around 2008, they released the data that they have behind the NPower. It's called All-Minute Respondent Level Data, AMRLD. So I was at ABC at the time, and we started working with it back then. And working with this means that we had an opportunity to do that, AKA Bloomberg Terminal, with this data and get ahead of sort of the pack and do all those great things with it. But back then in 2008 and 2009, the word big data was still new to a TV business. Today, any one of you, and almost in every speech, you refer to data, you refer to big data. At the time, it was sort of new, and the process of bringing something new to an organization such as ABC, which is a huge broadcast organization that could not go wrong for decades, wasn't an easy process. So let me take you to my past 2 years of experience with AMC, where you not only we collaborating together, we managed to do so much more than we even anticipated to do. A lot of things that, while Nielsen have released this data, as you all know, this data are not sort of enhanced enough in NPower. And data stewardship, data enhancement techniques is something that research took on themselves, and we can collaborate it and enhance data tremendously. Imagine that it takes 2 clicks to look at how this season did over the past season, and that's actually all throughout the whole implementation.
That actually brings up a good point. I'll give you a practical example. So everybody here knows the faults of the way all of us are coding our programs in Nielsen, and it creates the inability to get true, actionable understanding and insight for that data. We went back and recoded every program to the genre we believe it fits in. So no offense to Bravo if you're here, but Real Housewives right now in Nielsen is coded as a general drama. We don't believe it is a general drama. So we went back and recoded stuff to the point where we can look at reality competition. We can look at drama scripted. We can look at acquired drama. And at a click of a button through the tools that are available to us from business intelligence, we can, by click of a button, pull from, the history we have available to us, any season 2 drama versus the prior season. And we can look at that as an average number across the last 10 years, or we can look at individually by year what that looks like. And that's something that would have taken not only hours, I'd even debate days or weeks to do in Nielsen.
All right, so enough about Nielsen, enough about linear data. So this sort of first-party data world or multi-platform world, back about 4 years ago, we talked about, at ABC, we talked about and called it Holy Grail, which is something that you want really, really so much, but you can't get to. So now I can tell you that we no longer call it a Holy Grail because we got to it. So there are many, many, many different data sources we have to bring together. We need to find a way to join them, to cleanse them, to do whatever you need to do with data. And you can only imagine what kind of data this is. So we're getting data from our MSO partners, and they don't care the way they name things. Even our own people on the inside of MCN that publish their content on our sites don't really follow routines. So we found a way around this, and so we found a way to connect all of those various data sources and truly take advantage of the first-party data. So a lot of you call today's age a golden age of television. There are over 400 new shows are being made every year, and I agree with that 100%. The only thing I look at it from a different perspective. I say that it's a golden age from the content perspective. It's not so much of a golden age from what's happening to the industry. So any one of us who looks into tomorrow, does not clearly see what tomorrow is bringing in. And so one of the order of business that we're trying to take care of is that not be just B2B company, but see through and become sort of, to the degree that we can, a B2C world. So in that same spirit of big data and data integration analytics, so we're bringing in everyone who've ever communicated with us. We are signing up to our games, signing up to our newsletters. We involved in a bit of a spying game here, but all to the benefits of consumers, of course. And we're making great advances here too. So all in all, we internally call this sort of data democratization. What we do with data, we try to deliver this in a consumable format to everyone in the company who is willing and capable of consuming it. So the entire drive is about insights, and there are very, very tiny, small insights, large insights, and impossibly big insights. And if you arm business with tools that range from self-service, where they can actually just look for anything they want themselves, or pre-canned dashboards, heat maps, and reports that allow them to get to what they need to get to on a daily basis, you're positioning not only business intelligence, not only research, but everyone in the company to get to their own small insights very quickly and very conveniently. This leaves a lot of room for researchers to become researchers, to be researchers, to go far beyond just reporting numbers and massaging numbers, and gives us the capabilities of doing so much greater things. And just so to put things in perspective, my entire team is a handful of people. So. And because of this collaboration, because of the approach, we're able to do so much. I look at it all as a sort of levels, 3 levels of support that you normally get when you deal with such giant companies like IBM and Oracle, where if ever issue a problem that you want to report, so they first put you through sort of the first level of defense, and that's like if you're dumb and the answer to your question is dumb. So then when you push your way through, you get to the second level, and those people know somewhat. Well, I'm not talking about Nielsen, I'm talking about Oracle and IBM. So you get to the next second level of support. Those people know so much more. And then there's a third one, sort of the bottom line. People have to give you an answer because there's no one standing behind them. So as we offload as much as we can to schedulers, promo optimization departments, marketing, and then we arm research to do what they do best, which is researching new insights day over day. We leave to ourselves the ability to build statistical models, to dive into true and complex world of big data and deliver some insights from there as well.
Plus, they get to brush up on their college classes.
Yes, that's right.
So that brings us to the example today. We're bringing you an example using data and marketing. And the reason why we actually chose this example is not only did data bring us to the content that we ended up creating an example, but it actually enabled us to see the other side, what the goals were and how did we succeed. And it was hard to pick an example because we've done hundreds of examples in this, over the past year, but I feel like this is a good one, and obviously because all of us want to be better marketers, by increasing effectiveness in marketing, you're obviously decreasing the waste. And the whole idea of, and Vitaly mentioned it, the B2C, if we can personalize messaging to each of our consumers, won't they be better engaged and more apt to actually activate on it? So I chose an example using Turn. I know all of you are watching it. And the reason why I chose this is it's interesting. Turn and Halt and Catch Fire both air around the same time on AMC. Both had a season 1 that was relatively low versus network averages and other originals that we've created. And both had an opportunity for a pre-premiere catch-up leading into season 2. So the only difference would be we decided to implement this idea of data over what we're going to do for an actual campaign. And then we'd be able to see if it was effective. So here's the roadmap for what this specific campaign is. Identify, and this is like the hardest question, right? Identify the group of people you want to target. Usually that's pretty tough. Expose them to a message that makes sense for them, engage them with that message, activate them, and in this case, activate means I wanted them to click the button and actually watch the episode or season of Turn, and then retain them. And by retain, I mean I want to retain them. I use the term once they're in my house, I get information on them. So retain them meaning if they click through and they're not a current consumer of Turn, I now have their email, I can now retarget them, I can try to activate them in other programs that are on our air, and so on. So this specific campaign was to drive awareness, engage the potential viewers, we're not talking about current viewers, and encourage tune-in. So this is basically, all these little gray guys represent the audience of Turn, the millions of people that have engaged either, just in the program itself. What we did was, again, like I said, understanding who you want to target. So we felt a good opportunity for us to identify an audience is using the Insiders Club, the Turn newsletter, as a good base. And the reason why I think this is a good base is because these are people that actively went and signed up, opted in to a weekly newsletter from Turn throughout the year, by the way. So they gave us their email willingly because they want us to communicate one-on-one with them. And signing up for an email actually isn't passive. It's pretty active. You got to want to do it. So we felt like this 10,000 people were, and actually, coincidentally, it was almost the same amount of people for the Halt and Catch Fire. But this would represent the most passionate of all of those gray guys or the Turn viewers. What we found, so of the total audience, the 10,000, these gray guys now represent the 10,000. We then take that 10,000 people, the newsletter, and we do a reverse append, which means, so Axiom, which is a marketing database platform, I'm sure many of you in the room have used it, expands our ability to understand these people. So we do a reverse append. They're gonna match the 10,000 emails to their database, and by doing that, we now come back with enormous amount of data, 2,500 characteristics that not only give us their income, their, where they live, what their occupation is, propensities in media and beyond. And Vitaly was actually in Axiom.
Yeah,
we looked him up.
That's interesting. So you obviously know what Axiom and Experience are. So their whole business is to spy on us. So to get the best possible record of every one of us, even beyond what we know about ourselves. So the most important ingredient here is that we, dealing with Axiom, we have this data in-house. So it's not that for every one of those exercises we have to go out and ask them to sort of model it for us and give us the results. So we can do it ourselves. So having it in-house, what stops me from finding myself in that database? And so once I did, on one hand it was spooky, of course. It knew about me quite a few things and was super accurate. But the most spooky thing about that was that it knew about me so many things I did not know. So that's where, that's all those propensities and so. So now imagine that world of everyone that we can put our hands on it. So now it's all about seeding. So it's all about finding that small or large seed that we could use in order to navigate that world of actual people in this country. And so that reverse append process is one of the processes that help us to do that. So as you can see, it's about 50%. Axiom would be proud that they managed to match out of 10,000 people we provided them with, they managed to find 6,000 people in their database. Now, it's just a seed, it's just a starting point. To give you an example, we have people who are signing up for our Walking Dead newsletter in millions. And when we have gone through the same routine there, when we found out that there's no distinctiveness in that group of people. So they more or less represent the country.
Well, that would be difficult with 20 million viewers weekly. Oh, I'm sorry.
So what we tried to do with Turn at the time, we were to take the 6,000 people that we knew have exhibited the highest affinity to a product. And we hopefully ran some of the statistical models here, lookalike models, to find out if there is any distinctiveness in that group. And for those of you who've been out of college for a long time, as I have, you understand that if you were to be looking by age and gender, as you normally do in Nielsen, you don't need statistics for it. But when you have people described with over 2,500 characteristics, it's humanly impossible to find lookalikes, but statistically possible. So fortunately enough, when created those lookalike models, starting with the 6,000 seed, we saw that distinctiveness or clustering in that. So pretty much what we did, we built those lookalike models and we rated everyone in one of those 250 million people as to how closely they resemble that group of 6,000. So we broke it down in percentiles and we have seen normal distribution. So that's sort of dream come true. What it means is that graph you see in front of yourself is, again, something that you definitely learned in college, is that when we went after that 90th percentile, so people who at 90% probability look just like those 6,000 people, we knew we're on the right track. So we can actually go and distinctively select those people rather than to sort of guess and not able to.
So at the 90th percentile, that equated to 4 million emails or people that were so closely related to that seed from the newsletter group that we were able to target. So that's a nice number of people. So in this case, we chose to direct email them. And through the email, this is actually a picture of the email that got sent out. And by creating, marketing or an email that looked interesting to them, and in this case, all they had to do was click on it, and it would bring them immediately to AMC.com to be able to watch not only the first episode of Turn, but all episodes of Turn from the first season. But by being, where people are reading their emails, it's almost like we made a personal appointment with them to tell them about this program. And so here are the results. So this isn't surprising. We did believe in our hearts and brains that it was going to work. And it worked. It was very successful. So we had an open rate of over 4 times the industry average. And versus Halt and Catch Fire, remember we were lucky enough to be able to have a comparison program, it was more than double. So this was a very satisfying day for both Vitaly and I, and for the marketing team, and for us getting further down the line of what this means. What we expected were good results here. What I didn't expect was what the next finding was. What the next finding was is not only did we see success in the TVE world, remember, you could click right through, but in the VOD world, we had 3 times the amount of views to Turn season 1 than we did for Halt and Catch Fire. So that means that the messaging that was sent actually resonated with that audience, those 4 million people, to the level that they remembered to leave their computer and actually go sit in front of their TV with a set-top box and seek out this program. So this is just one example, and the reason why I like this example, besides the fact that it was one of our earliest, tests, and that the results were so strong, but we just wanted to be able to tell you today that we're on this journey for data and insights on an everyday basis, and hopefully this, our presentation today will give you a little bit of insight that maybe regardless of how your structure is at your company, or regardless of the tools you have in your toolbox, that you're able to look towards the future to better and better insights for your company.
And so I believe, if you believed our presentation today, if you believe that we are successful in what we do, and that success is based on our collaboration, so I hope that when we're here next year, you're going to see many more people in white suits.
In white suits. Thank you.